The wine glass shook in my hand as I watched my husband lean across the candlelit table, his fingers intertwining with another woman's. 23 years of marriage, and here I was, sitting just 3 feet away at the next table, watching him promise her that he would leave me soon. The woman, blonde, younger, everything I apparently wasn't anymore, giggled as he whispered something in her ear. What made it worse was the man sitting across from me, his jaw clenched so tight I thought it might snap. This was her husband. And neither of our cheating spouses had any idea we were there. "I can't believe this," whispered the man beside me, his voice barely audible over the restaurant's soft jazz music. His name was Robert, and until 2 weeks ago, he'd been living the same lie I had, thinking he had a faithful marriage. I watched as my husband, let's call him Thomas, reached into his jacket pocket. My heart stopped. Was he about to propose to her? After 23 years of marriage, countless family dinners, 2 kids we'd raised together, and a house we'd built from nothing? "She told me she was having dinner with her sister tonight," Robert continued, his knuckles white as he gripped his water glass. "Her sister lives in California." The woman, Robert's wife, named Patricia, threw her head back and laughed at something Thomas said. The sound cut through me like glass. That laugh. That same laugh I'd heard over the phone when she'd called our house by mistake, 3 months ago, asking for Thomas. When I'd asked who was calling, she'd hung up. I'd been stupid then. I'd believed Thomas when he said it was probably a wrong number. I'd believed him when he started working late. I'd believed him when he said the credit card charges at expensive restaurants were client meetings. I'd believed him when he said the new cologne was because he wanted to freshen up his image at work. But I wasn't stupid anymore. "How long have you known?" I asked Robert, keeping my voice low as I pretended to study my menu. 6 months, he said, his voice breaking slightly. "I hired a private investigator. Got photos, credit card statements, hotel receipts. Everything. 6 months. He'd known for 6 months and hadn't said anything. Just like I'd suspected for 4 months and hadn't said anything. We'd both been living in our own private hells, watching our marriages crumble while pretending everything was fine. "Why didn't you confront them?" I asked. Robert looked at me then, and I saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. "Because I wanted to destroy them the way they destroyed us. I wanted them to feel the humiliation we felt. I wanted everyone to see what kind of people they really are." I understood that feeling perfectly. The rage that built up inside you when you realized that the person you trusted most in the world had been lying to your face every single day. The shame that came with knowing that everyone probably already knew, the neighbors, the friends, maybe even your own children, and you were the last to figure it out. At the next table, Thomas was now holding Patricia's hand, stroking her wedding ring with his thumb. The wedding ring that matched the one I'd seen him slip off and put in his pocket when he thought I wasn't looking. The wedding ring that represented vows to love, honor, and cherish another person. The wedding ring that clearly meant nothing to him anymore. "I found them," I said quietly, answering Robert's earlier question. 2 weeks ago. I followed him here. It had been a Tuesday night. Thomas had said he was working late again, but something felt wrong. His phone had been buzzing all day and he'd been stepping out to take calls. When he'd kissed me goodbye that morning, it had felt like he was already gone. So I'd done something I'd never done before. I'd followed him. I'd watched from my car as he'd picked up Patricia from her office building downtown. I'd watched them drive here to Romano's, the same restaurant where we'd had our first anniversary dinner. I'd watched them walk in together, his hand on her lower back the same way he used to touch me. And I'd sat in my car for 2 hours, crying and planning. "She doesn't know I know," Robert said, pulling me back to the present. "She thinks I'm at bowling league tonight. Thomas thinks I'm at book club," I replied. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us watching our spouses live their lie right in front of us. The waiter approached their table with champagne, expensive champagne, the kind Thomas always said was a waste of money when I suggested it for our anniversary. "What are we doing here?" Robert asked suddenly. "What's the plan?" I took a deep breath and looked at him. Robert was a good man. I could tell that just from the way he'd handled himself when I'd contacted him. He could have accused me of lying, could have refused to meet me, could have warned his wife. Instead, he'd agreed to this crazy plan because he understood that sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. "We're going to let them finish their dinner," I said calmly. "We're going to let them think they're safe. And then we're going to walk over there and introduce ourselves. And then we're going to watch their whole world fall apart." The waiter brought our table the appetizers we'd ordered, not because we were hungry, but because we needed to look like a normal couple having a normal dinner. Robert pushed the food around his plate, unable to eat. I couldn't blame him. My stomach was churning too. "I used to think she was the perfect wife," Robert said quietly. She made dinner every night, kept the house clean, never complained about anything. I thought I was the luckiest man alive. I thought Thomas was my best friend, I replied. We could talk about anything. Or at least I thought we could. When did you know for sure? He asked. I thought about that question. When had I known for sure? Was it when I'd found the receipts? When I'd seen the phone calls? When I'd smelled her perfume on his clothes? Or was it earlier than that? Was it when he'd stopped looking at me the same way? When he'd stopped asking about my day? When he'd started finding excuses not to be home? I think I knew before I wanted to admit it, I said finally. You know that feeling when something's wrong but you can't put your finger on it? I had that feeling for months. Robert nodded. The way she'd smile at her phone. The way she'd suddenly start caring about her appearance again. The way she'd disappear for hours and come back with stories that didn't quite add up. The way he'd shower as soon as he got home from work, I added. The way he'd put his phone face down on the table. The way he'd start fights about nothing so he could storm out of the house. We were both quiet again, lost in our own memories of all the signs we'd ignored or explained away. In the background, I could hear Thomas laughing at something Patricia had said. The sound made my chest tight. I loved him, I said suddenly. I really loved him. Even when I suspected, even when I found proof, part of me still loved him. Past tense? Robert asked. I looked over at Thomas, who was now feeding Patricia a bite of his dessert. The same dessert he'd shared with me on our first date 30 years ago. The same dessert he'd said was our thing. Past tense, I confirmed. Robert reached across the table and squeezed my hand. It wasn't romantic, we were both too broken for that, but it was human. It was understanding. It was the touch of someone who knew exactly what you were going through because they were going through it too. Are you ready? He asked. I looked at my watch. They'd been here for an hour and a half. They'd had their appetizers, their main course, and now their dessert. They'd had their romantic evening, their stolen moment, their fantasy where they could pretend that their actions didn't have consequences. But every fantasy has to end sometime. I'm ready, I said. I stood up from our table, smoothed down my black dress, the one Thomas had always said was his favorite, and walked the 3 steps to their table. Robert was right behind me. Hello, Thomas, I said, my voice steady despite the fact that my heart was hammering in my chest. The look on his face was something I would remember for the rest of my life. First confusion, then recognition, then pure terror. Patricia looked up at me with a polite smile, not yet understanding what was happening. And you must be Patricia, I continued, extending my hand to her. I'm Thomas's wife. And this is Robert, your husband. The smile disappeared from Patricia's face so quickly it was almost comical. The color drained from her cheeks as she looked from me to Robert to Thomas, finally understanding that their secret was out. I think we need to have a conversation, I said, pulling out the chair next to Thomas. Don't you? 3 months earlier, I'd been a different person. I'd been someone who believed in happily ever after, someone who thought that 23 years of marriage meant something, someone who trusted the man sleeping next to her every night. I'd been naive and I'd been happy in my naivety. The first crack in my perfect world came on a Tuesday morning in March. I was making coffee when Thomas's phone, which he'd left on the kitchen counter, buzzed with a text message. The screen lit up with a preview. Can't wait to see you tonight. Same place? I stared at the message for a long moment. P. Who was P? Thomas knew a lot of people through work, but most of his contacts were saved with full names. And the tone of the message felt intimate, personal, like something you'd send to someone you were close to. When Thomas came downstairs, I was still standing there with his phone in my hand. Your phone was buzzing, I said, holding it out to him. He took it quickly, maybe too quickly, and glanced at the screen. Just work stuff, he said, shoving it into his pocket without responding to the message. Who's P? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Patricia from accounting, he said, not meeting my eyes. We're working on the quarterly reports. Patricia from accounting. I'd heard him mention her before, but only in passing. She was new to the company, had started about 6 months ago. Young, efficient, eager to make a good impression. At least, that's how Thomas had described her. Are you working late again tonight? I asked. Probably, he said, kissing my cheek as he grabbed his briefcase. Don't wait up. After he left, I stood in the kitchen for a long time thinking about that text message. Can't wait to see you tonight. That wasn't how you talked about quarterly reports. That wasn't how you talked about work at all. But I pushed the thought away. Thomas wasn't the type to have an affair. He was steady, dependable, boring even. He came home every night, even if it was late. He still kissed me goodbye every morning. He still said he loved me. People like Thomas didn't have affairs. The second crack came a week later. I was doing laundry when I found a receipt in Thomas's pants pocket. It was from Romano's, the Italian restaurant downtown. The expensive one. The one we'd only been to a few times for special occasions. The receipt was for 2 people, 2 appetizers, 2 main courses, 2 glasses of wine, and a shared dessert. I tried to remember the last time we'd been to Romano's together. It had been our anniversary 6 months ago. But this receipt was dated from last week, the same night he'd said he was working late. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the receipt. Maybe he'd taken a client there. Maybe it was a business dinner. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation. But the receipt showed they'd ordered the chocolate mousse. The same chocolate mousse Thomas and I had shared on our first date 30 years ago. The same dessert he'd said was our thing. He wouldn't order that with a client. He wouldn't order that with anyone except me. Unless he was sharing it with someone else the way he'd once shared it with me. I hid the receipt in my jewelry box and didn't say anything to Thomas. I couldn't. What was I supposed to say? I found a receipt in your pocket and I think you're cheating on me? He'd have an explanation. He always had an explanation. And I wasn't ready to hear it. The third crack came 2 weeks after that. I was at the grocery store when I saw her. Patricia from accounting. She was standing in the produce section, examining avocados, and she was beautiful. Not just pretty beautiful. Blonde hair that looked like she just stepped out of a salon, perfect makeup. A figure that made me suddenly aware of every pound I'd gained over the past 23 years. She looked younger than I'd expected. Much younger. Maybe late 20s, early 30s at most. Young enough to be my daughter. Young enough to make a 50-year-old man feel like he was 20 again. I watched her from behind a display of apples, feeling like a stalker but unable to look away. She moved with confidence, with purpose. She was wearing a dress that probably cost more than I spent on clothes in 3 months. She looked like the kind of woman who knew exactly what she wanted and wasn't afraid to take it. She looked like everything I wasn't anymore. I followed her through the store, staying far enough back that she wouldn't notice me. I watched her select organic vegetables, expensive cuts of meat, wine that cost more than $20 a bottle. I watched her pay with a credit card that had her name on it, Patricia Reynolds. Mrs. Patricia Reynolds. She was married. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes after she'd driven away, crying harder than I'd cried in years. Not because I knew for sure that Thomas was having an affair, I didn't. Not yet, but because I'd seen the kind of woman he was spending his time with. I'd seen what I was being compared to. That night, I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror for a long time. Really looked. I saw the gray streaks in my brown hair that I'd been meaning to color. I saw the lines around my eyes that had gotten deeper over the past few years. I saw the softness around my middle that came from 23 years of comfortable marriage and home-cooked meals. I saw a woman who had let herself go. A woman who had gotten so comfortable in her marriage that she'd stopped trying. A woman who had become invisible to her own husband. When Thomas came home that night late, as usual, I was waiting for him in the living room. "How was work?" I asked. "Fine," he said, loosening his tie. "Busy day." "How's Patricia from accounting?" He paused just for a second, but I caught it. "She's fine." "Why do you ask?" "Just curious," I said. "You mention her a lot." "Do I?" He seemed genuinely surprised. I hadn't noticed, but I had noticed. Over the past few months, Patricia's name had come up in conversation more and more. Patricia had an idea for improving the filing system. Patricia had made an excellent point in the meeting. Patricia was working late to help with the quarterly reports. Patricia. What does she look like? I asked. Thomas gave me a strange look. "I don't know. Normal, I guess." "Why?" "Just curious," I repeated. But I already knew what she looked like. I'd seen her perfect hair, her perfect dress, her perfect life. I'd seen the woman my husband was spending 8 hours a day with while I sat at home, planning dinner and wondering why he never seemed excited to see me anymore. That night, I lay awake listening to Thomas sleep beside me. He'd showered before bed, which was unusual. He usually showered in the morning. And he'd been particularly careful about where he put his phone, making sure it was face down on his nightstand. I stared at the ceiling and tried to remember the last time he'd really looked at me. The last time he'd asked about my day and actually listened to the answer. The last time he'd touched me without it feeling like an obligation. I tried to remember the last time I'd felt like his wife instead of his roommate. The fourth crack came a month later, and it was the one that shattered everything. I was cleaning out Thomas's car, something I did every few weeks, when I found an earring under the passenger seat. A small, delicate pearl earring. Expensive. The kind of earring that Patricia Reynolds would wear. I'd never seen it before. It wasn't mine. I didn't wear pearl earrings. I didn't wear expensive jewelry at all. Thomas had stopped buying me jewelry years ago, saying it was a waste of money. I sat in the driver's seat of his car, holding the earring in my palm, and I knew. I finally knew for sure what I'd been trying not to know for months. My husband was having an affair. With Patricia Reynolds, the beautiful woman from accounting. The woman who was young enough to be his daughter and married to someone else. I went inside and put the earring in my jewelry box next to the receipt from Romano's. Evidence. Proof. The pieces of my broken marriage. That night, I made Thomas's favorite dinner. Pot roast with vegetables, mashed potatoes, and apple pie for dessert. I set the table with our good china, lit candles, and opened a bottle of wine. I wanted one last normal evening before everything changed. "This is nice," Thomas said, sitting down at the table. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion," I said, serving him a generous portion. "I just wanted to do something special." We ate in comfortable silence, the way we had thousands of times before. Thomas complimented the food, asked about my day, told me about a project he was working on. It was normal. It was familiar. It was a lie. After dinner, I helped him with the dishes. We moved around the kitchen together the way we had for 23 years, a practiced dance of domesticity. He washed, I dried. He put away the pots, I put away the plates. "I love you," I said suddenly, the words slipping out before I could stop them. He looked at me surprised. "I love you too." But even as he said it, I could see the guilt in his eyes. The knowledge that he was lying to me, that he'd been lying to me for months. The knowledge that he was in love with someone else. "Do you?" I asked. "Of course I do," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Why would you ask that?" "No reason," I said, hanging up the dish towel. "Just wanted to hear you say it." That night, after Thomas had gone to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and my laptop. I needed to know more. I needed to understand what I was up against. I found Patricia Reynolds on social media easily. Her profiles were public, filled with photos of her perfect life. Pictures of her at expensive restaurants, on exotic vacations, at charity events. Pictures of her with her husband, a kind-looking man named Robert who worked in construction. I scrolled through months of posts looking for any sign of Thomas. I didn't find any photos of him, but I found something else. Gaps. Evenings when she posted about being out but didn't say where. Nights when she posted photos of food from restaurants I knew Thomas had been to. I found a photo of chocolate mousse from Romano's, posted the same night I'd found the receipt in Thomas's pocket. The caption read, "Sometimes you need to treat yourself to something special." I closed the laptop and finished my wine. Tomorrow I would start planning. Tomorrow I would figure out how to destroy the woman who was destroying my marriage. Tomorrow I would contact her husband and tell him what his wife was doing. But tonight I would grieve. I would mourn the end of my marriage, the end of my trust, the end of the life I'd built with a man who had decided I wasn't enough for him anymore. Tonight I would say goodbye to the woman I'd been for 50 years. The woman who believed in love, who trusted her husband, who thought that being a good wife was enough. Tomorrow I would become someone else. Someone harder. Someone who fought back. Someone who got revenge. The next morning I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. The uncertainty was gone. The doubt was gone. The desperate hope that I was wrong was gone. In its place was something cold and focused and dangerous. I made Thomas breakfast the way I had every morning for 23 years. Eggs over easy, wheat toast, coffee with 2 sugars. I kissed him goodbye at the door. I told him to have a good day at work. I smiled and waved as he drove away. Then I went upstairs and opened my laptop. Robert Reynolds, Patricia's husband. He worked for Reynolds Construction, a mid-sized company that specialized in commercial buildings. According to their website, he was the owner and founder. He looked like a good man in his photos, honest, hardworking, dedicated to his family and his business. He had no idea his wife was cheating on him. I found his office number and called before I could change my mind. "Reynolds Construction, this is Robert," he answered. "Mr. Reynolds, my name is Linda," I said, using my middle name. "I have some information about your wife that I think you need to know." There was a long pause. "What kind of information?" "The kind that's better discussed in person," I said. "Could we meet somewhere private?" Another pause. "Look, lady, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but your wife is having an affair," I said quickly. "With my husband. I have proof." The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Finally he spoke and his voice was different. Quieter. More careful. "What kind of proof?" "Receipts. Photos. Phone records. Everything," I said. I know this is hard to hear, but I thought you deserved to know. Where do you want to meet? We arranged to meet at a coffee shop across town that afternoon. I spent the morning gathering evidence, organizing everything I had into a folder. The receipt from Romano's. The pearl earring. Screenshots of Patricia's social media posts. A list of all the nights Thomas had claimed to be working late. I also did something I'd never done before. I called Thomas's office. "Hi, this is Linda Morrison," I said to the receptionist. "I'm trying to reach my husband, Thomas Morrison." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Morrison, but Thomas isn't in today. He's working from home." Working from home. But he'd left the house that morning in a suit, carrying his briefcase. He kissed me goodbye and said he had a busy day at the office. "Oh, silly me," I said, keeping my voice light. "I must have mixed up his schedule. Do you know if he'll be in tomorrow?" "Let me check. It looks like he's scheduled to work from home the rest of the week." The rest of the week. 4 days of lying to my face. 4 days of leaving the house every morning and pretending to go to work while actually spending the day with his mistress. I hung up the phone and added this information to my folder. Then I drove to the coffee shop to meet the other betrayed spouse. Robert Reynolds was easy to spot. He was sitting in a corner booth, looking like a man who'd just been told his world was ending. When he saw me approach, he stood up politely, but his eyes were red and his hands were shaking. "Linda?" he asked. "Thank you for meeting me," I said, sliding into the booth across from him. "Show me," he said without preamble. "Show me the proof." I opened my folder and spread everything out on the table between us. The receipt from Romano's. The earring. The screenshots. The phone records I'd printed out showing calls between Thomas and Patricia at all hours of the day and night. Robert examined everything carefully, his face growing paler with each piece of evidence. When he got to the earring, his hands started shaking worse. "She lost this a few weeks ago," he said quietly. "She was upset about it. Said it was one of her favorites." "I found it in my husband's car," I said. He set the earring down and looked at me. "How long have you known?" "I suspected for months, but I only knew for sure yesterday." "You?" "I've suspected for about 6 months," he said. But I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. Patricia would never do something like this. She's a good person. She loves me. "Thomas told me he was working late," I said. "Every night for the past 3 months. Patricia said she was taking evening classes. Continuing education for her job." Robert laughed bitterly. "I even offered to help her study." We sat in silence for a moment, both of us processing the reality of our situation. Our spouses weren't just having an affair, they were living entire secret lives. They were lying to us every single day, looking us in the eyes and making up stories about where they were and what they were doing. "What do you want to do about it?" Robert asked. "I want to destroy them," I said, and I meant it. "I want them to feel as humiliated and betrayed as we do." "How?" "I'm not sure yet," I admitted. "But I know I don't want to just confront them privately. I don't want to give them the chance to explain or apologize or make excuses. I want everyone to see what they really are." Robert nodded slowly. "I've been thinking about this for months. I've imagined confronting them 1,000 different ways. But I keep coming back to the same thing: I want them to suffer the way they've made us suffer." "Then we work together," I said. "We pool our resources, share our information, and we make sure they can't wiggle out of this." "What's the plan?" I leaned forward. "First, we need more evidence. Photos if possible. I want documentation of them together so they can't deny it." "I can hire a private investigator," Robert said. "I've been thinking about it anyway." "Good." "Second, we need to figure out where they go, what they do when they see each other. We need to know their routine." "Patricia goes out Tuesday and Thursday nights," Robert said. "She says it's her class, but now I know better." "Thomas works late Monday, Wednesday, and Friday," I said. "At least, that's what he tells me." "So they're seeing each other at least 5 nights a week," Robert said. "This isn't just an affair. This is a full relationship." The words hit me like a physical blow. A full relationship. Not just sex, not just excitement, but an actual relationship. My husband was living a double life, and I was the woman he came home to out of habit, not love. "There's something else," I said, pulling out my phone. "I called Thomas's office this morning. He's not working. He's taking vacation days and telling me he's going to the office." "Son of a bitch," Robert said. "They're spending entire days together." "We need to find out where they go," I said. "We need to catch them in the act." Robert was quiet for a long moment, thinking. "I have a friend who does surveillance work. Corporate stuff, mostly, but he's good at following people without being noticed." "How much would that cost?" I don't care, Robert said. I'll pay whatever it takes. We spent the next hour planning. Robert would hire the private investigator to follow them and get photos. I would monitor their phone calls and text messages. We would meet again in a week to share what we'd learned. Can I ask you something? Robert said as we were getting ready to leave. Of course. Do you still love him? I thought about that question. Did I still love Thomas? The man who had been my husband for 23 years, who had held me when I cried, who had celebrated every success and comforted me through every failure. I love the man I thought he was, I said finally. But that man doesn't exist anymore. Maybe he never did. I know what you mean, Robert said. I keep thinking about all the times Patricia said she loved me and wondering if she meant it, or if she was just going through the motions while thinking about him. Does it matter? I asked. Even if she meant it then, she doesn't mean it now. Even if Thomas loved me once, he doesn't love me now. We can't build a relationship on what used to be. No, Robert said. We can't. We exchanged phone numbers and agreed to stay in touch. As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: purpose. I had a plan. I had an ally. I had a reason to get up in the morning. That evening, Thomas came home at his usual time, full of stories about his day at the office. He told me about a meeting with a difficult client, a problem with the quarterly reports, a funny story from the break room. He was a good liar, I had to give him that. If I didn't know better, I would have believed every word. How was your day? He asked as we sat down to dinner. Quiet, I said. I went to the coffee shop, did some grocery shopping, nothing exciting. The coffee shop on 5th Street? He asked, and I caught something in his voice. Concern? Fear? No, the one on Maple, I said. Why? No reason, he said, but he looked relieved. After dinner, while Thomas was watching TV, I went upstairs and called Robert. I think he saw us, I said. What do you mean? He asked about the coffee shop. Too casually. Like he was checking up on me. Maybe Patricia mentioned seeing you there, Robert suggested. Maybe. Or maybe they're more careful than we thought. We need to be more careful too, Robert said. If they suspect we're onto them, they might change their routine. Or they might break it off, I said. Would that be so bad? I thought about that. Would it be bad if Thomas ended his affair and came back to me? If he apologized and promised to be faithful? If we went back to the way things were? Yes, I said. It would be bad. Because I'd never be able to trust him again. I'd always wonder if he was thinking about her. I'd always wonder if he was just with me because he got caught. So what do we want? I want them to face consequences, I said. I want everyone to know what they did. I want them to lose the things they care about the way they made us lose the things we cared about. Our marriages, Robert said. Our marriages, I agreed. Our trust. Our faith and love. Our belief that the person we chose to spend our lives with actually chose us back. I hired the investigator, Robert said. He starts tomorrow. Good. And I'm going to do some investigating of my own. What do you mean? I'm going to follow them myself. I want to see with my own eyes what they're doing. I want to understand who my husband becomes when he's with her. That's dangerous, Robert said. What if they see you? Then I'll deal with that when it happens, I said. But I need to know. I need to see. I understand, Robert said. I've thought about following them myself. Why don't you? Because I'm afraid of what I'll see, he said quietly. I'm afraid I'll see him make her laugh the way he used to make me laugh. I'm afraid I'll see him touch her the way he used to touch me. I'm afraid I'll see him be the man I fell in love with, just with someone else. That's exactly why I need to see it, I said. Because once I do, I'll stop loving him. Once I see him with her, I'll be able to let go. And then I'll be able to destroy him without feeling guilty about it. The next morning, I told Thomas the first was spending the day with my sister. Instead, I drove to his office building and parked across the street. I wanted to see if he actually showed up, even though I knew he wouldn't. At 9:30, I saw Patricia's car pull into the parking lot. She got out wearing a red dress that hugged her curves perfectly. She looked happy, excited, like she was going to meet someone she cared about. 10 minutes later, Thomas's car pulled up next to hers. He got out and walked over to her. Even from across the street, I could see the way his face lit up when he saw her. The way he kissed her cheek. The way he put his arm around her waist as they walked toward the building. I had never seen Thomas look that happy to see me. Not in years. They disappeared into the office building together, and I sat in my car for another hour, crying and planning. When I finally drove home, I felt like a different person. The woman who had kissed Thomas goodbye that morning was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone angrier, someone who was ready to fight. That afternoon I called Robert. I saw them, I said. How bad was it? Bad, I said. But not in the way I expected. What do you mean? I thought it would hurt more. I thought seeing them together would destroy me. But instead it made me angry. It made me determined. Good, Robert said. Anger is better than sadness. Anger gets things done. Did your investigator find anything? He followed them yesterday. They went to a hotel downtown. Stayed for 3 hours. A hotel. Not even somewhere romantic or special. Just a place to have sex. My 23-year marriage was being destroyed for afternoon sex in a cheap hotel room. I have an idea, I said. I'm listening. I want to confront them publicly. I want to humiliate them the way they humiliated us. How? I'm going to find out where they go for their romantic dinners. And then I'm going to make sure we're there when they arrive. That's risky, Robert said. I don't care, I said. I'm tired of being careful. I'm tired of being the good wife who doesn't make waves. I want to make some waves. What do you need me to do? I need you to be there with me. I need you to be my witness. I need you to help me make sure they can't deny what they've done. When? Soon, I said. Very soon. The private investigator Robert had hired was worth every penny. His name was James, and he was a thin, quiet man who could blend into any crowd. Within a week, he had provided us with a complete picture of Thomas and Patricia's affair. They met every Tuesday and Thursday at the Marriott downtown. They had lunch together every Friday at a small cafe near Patricia's office. And every other Saturday they drove to a bed and breakfast 2 hours outside the city, where they spent the night pretending to be a married couple. They're not just having an affair, James explained as he spread photographs across Robert's kitchen table. They're living an entire alternate life. The photos were devastating. Thomas and Patricia holding hands as they walked into the hotel. Thomas and Patricia kissing in the parking lot of the cafe. Thomas and Patricia checking into the bed and breakfast. Thomas carrying Patricia's overnight bag like a devoted husband. In every photo they looked happy. Not guilty, not conflicted, not torn between their real lives and their secret life. Just happy. There's something else, James said, pulling out a folder. I ran a background check on both of them. What did you find? I asked. This isn't their first affair, James said. Patricia left her previous job because she was having an affair with her supervisor. And Thomas? Well, let's just say there are some credit card charges that suggest this isn't his first time cheating either. The room went quiet. Robert and I stared at each other, processing this information. You mean they're both serial cheaters? Robert asked. It looks that way, James said. Patricia has a pattern of getting involved with married men at work. And Thomas has been taking women to hotels for the past 5 years. 5 years. My husband had been cheating on me for 5 years, and I'd been too stupid to realize it. I need some air, I said, standing up abruptly. I walked out onto Robert's back porch and sat down on the steps, trying to catch my breath. Everything I'd thought I knew about my marriage was a lie. Thomas hadn't just fallen in love with Patricia and made a mistake. He'd been systematically betraying me for years. Robert came out and sat down beside me. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For bringing you into this. For making you see those photos. For destroying what was left of your marriage. You didn't destroy my marriage, I said. Thomas did that all by himself. How do you feel? I thought about that question. How did I feel? Angry, yes. Betrayed, certainly. But also strangely relieved. I feel free, I said finally. 4 months I've been trying to figure out what I did wrong. Why I wasn't enough for him. Why he stopped loving me. But now I know it was never about me. He's just broken. He's just someone who can't be faithful. Patricia too, Robert said. I keep thinking about all the times she told me she loved me, and now I know she was probably cheating on me even then. Are you going to divorce her? Yes, Robert said without hesitation. Are you going to divorce Thomas? Yes, I said. But not until after we make them pay for what they've done. We went back inside where James was packing up his files. What do you recommend? Robert asked him. Personally? James said. I'd say take all this evidence to divorce lawyers and call it a day. But I have a feeling you two want to do something more dramatic. We want to confront them, I said. Publicly. James nodded. I thought you might. In that case, I'd recommend Romano's restaurant. They go there every Friday night. It's their special place. They always sit at the same table number 12, by the window. This Friday? Robert asked. This Friday, James confirmed. 7 o'clock reservation. After James left, Robert and I sat in his kitchen, planning our confrontation. We would call Romano's and reserve the table next to theirs. We would arrive early and be waiting when they showed up. We would let them have their romantic dinner and then we would introduce ourselves. What if they try to leave? Robert asked. Then we follow them, I said. We don't let them run away from this. What if they deny it? Then we show them the photos, I said. We show everyone in the restaurant the photos. Are you sure you want to do this? Robert asked. Once we do this, there's no going back. I'm sure, I said. I'm tired of being the victim. I'm tired of being the woman who gets cheated on and doesn't fight back. I want them to face consequences. What kind of consequences? I want Thomas to lose his job, I said. I want Patricia to lose her reputation. I want everyone to know what kind of people they are. And then I want to start over, I said. I want to build a life that doesn't include a lying, cheating husband. I want to remember what it feels like to be happy. Robert smiled for the first time since I'd met him. I'd like that too. Good, I said. Then let's destroy them. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. I went to see a divorce lawyer and filed papers. I opened my own bank account and transferred half of our joint savings. I found an apartment and put down a deposit. I was preparing for war. Thomas, meanwhile, continued his charade. He went to work every day, came home with stories about his busy schedule, and acted like the loving husband he'd never actually been. The only difference was that I no longer believed any of it. You seem different, he said to me on Thursday night as we were getting ready for bed. Different how? I don't know. Happier maybe. More confident. Maybe I am, I said. Any particular reason? I looked at him in the bathroom mirror as he brushed his teeth. This man who had shared my bed for 23 years. This man who had promised to love, honor, and cherish me. This man who had been lying to my face for years. I've been thinking about making some changes, I said. What kind of changes? Oh, you'll see, I said. Very soon. Friday came and I spent the entire day preparing. I got my hair done, bought a new dress, and had my nails manicured. I wanted to look perfect for the confrontation. I wanted Thomas to see exactly what he was giving up. At 6 o'clock, I met Robert at Romano's. He looked nervous but determined. We were both dressed up, playing the part of a couple on a date. Table for two, I told the hostess. We'd like table 11, please. Table 11 was right next to table 12, where Thomas and Patricia would be sitting in an hour. The hostess seated us and we ordered drinks to calm our nerves. How do you feel? Robert asked. Scared, I admitted. But ready. Me too. We sat in silence for a few minutes, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Around us, Romano's was filling up with couples on dates, families celebrating special occasions, groups of friends enjoying dinner together. Normal people living normal lives. Do you think they'll try to make excuses? Robert asked. Probably, I said. Thomas is good at making excuses. He's had a lot of practice. What will you say? I don't know, I said. I've rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times in my head, but I have no idea what I'll actually say when I see them together. We'll figure it out, Robert said. We'll figure it out together. At 7 o'clock exactly, Thomas and Patricia walked into the restaurant. They looked like the perfect couple, well-dressed, attractive, completely at ease with each other. The hostess led them to table 12, just 3 feet away from where Robert and I were sitting. Thomas pulled out Patricia's chair for her, the same gallant gesture he'd stopped doing for me years ago. They sat down and immediately started talking, their heads bent close together, completely absorbed in each other. They look like they're in love, Robert said quietly. They probably think they are, I said. But you can't build love on lies. We watched them order wine, appetizers, and entrees. We watched them laugh together, hold hands across the table, and share their food. We watched them live out the romantic relationship that should have been mine. I can't believe I'm sitting here watching my wife have dinner with another man, Robert said. I can't believe I'm sitting here watching my husband be happy with someone else, I replied. Are you ready? Robert asked. I looked at Thomas and Patricia, lost in their own little world. Tomorrow their world would be shattered. Tomorrow they would face the consequences of their actions. Tomorrow they would learn that actions have consequences. I'm ready, I said. The rest of that evening at Romano's was torture. Robert and I sat at our table, pretending to enjoy our dinner while watching Thomas and Patricia live out their fantasy relationship just 3 feet away. They were completely absorbed in each other, completely unaware that their betrayed spouses were sitting close enough to hear every word. "She's telling him about her day," Robert whispered to me as Patricia animated shared a story that made Thomas laugh. "He's touching her hand the way he used to touch mine," I whispered back. We stayed until they finished their dessert, the chocolate mousse, of course, and left together. Thomas kissed Patricia goodbye in the parking lot, a long, passionate kiss that left no doubt about their feelings for each other. "I need to go home," I said to Robert after they'd driven away in separate cars. "Are you okay?" "No," I said honestly, "but I will be after we finish this." At home, Thomas was already in bed, pretending to read a book. He looked up when I came in and I saw guilt flash across his face. "How was dinner with your sister?" he asked. "Fine," I said, hanging up my coat. "How was your evening?" "Quiet," he said. "I just stayed home and watched TV." "What?" Another lie. I was married to a man who could lie as easily as breathing. "I'm going to take a shower," I said. In the bathroom, I looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was perfect, my makeup was flawless, my new dress was beautiful. I looked like a woman who deserved better than a cheating husband. I looked like a woman who was ready to fight. The next morning I called Robert. "I want to do it next Friday," I said. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I can't keep watching them have their perfect relationship while we sit in the dark. I can't keep pretending I don't know what's happening." "What's the plan?" "Same as before. We make a reservation at Romano's for next Friday night. We sit at the table next to theirs. We let them have their dinner and then we introduce ourselves. And then we tell them exactly what we think of them. In front of everyone. What if they try to leave? Then we follow them. We don't let them escape without facing what they've done. What if they deny it? Then we show them the photos. We show everyone the photos." Robert was quiet for a moment. "This is really happening, isn't it?" "It's really happening," I said. "Are you ready?" "I'm ready." We spent the next week preparing. Robert made copies of all the photos James had taken. I printed out copies of the phone records, the credit card statements, and the hotel receipts. We had enough evidence to prove beyond any doubt that Thomas and Patricia were having an affair. I also made some practical preparations. I moved more of my belongings to my new apartment. I opened a new checking account and had my paycheck deposited there. I met with my divorce lawyer and signed papers. I was getting ready to leave Thomas, whether he knew it or not. "You seem different lately," Thomas said to me on Wednesday night. "Different how?" "I don't know. More independent. Like you don't need me anymore." "Maybe I don't," I said. He looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe I've been depending on you too much. Maybe it's time I learned to stand on my own 2 feet." "Are you unhappy?" he asked. "Are you?" I countered. "No," he said, but there was something in his eyes that suggested otherwise. "Why would you ask that?" "No reason," I said. "Just curious." But I knew why he looked guilty. He was living a double life and the strain was starting to show. He was trying to be a husband to me while being a boyfriend to Patricia, and it was becoming impossible to maintain both roles. "I love you," he said suddenly. "Do you?" I asked. "Of course I do." "Why would you doubt that?" "Because love isn't just words," I said. "It's actions. It's choices. It's being faithful to the person you promised to be faithful to." Thomas's face went pale. "What are you trying to say?" "I'm not trying to say anything," I said. "I'm just thinking out loud." But I could see the fear in his eyes. The fear that I might know something. The fear that his perfect double life might be falling apart. "I need to go to bed," he said. "I have an early meeting tomorrow." "Of course you do," I said. The next day I called Robert to make our final plans. "I made the reservation," he said. "Table 11, 7:30. "Good. Do you have the photos?" "All of them. And I made copies of everything else too. Phone records, hotel receipts, credit card statements." "Perfect. How are you feeling?" "Scared," Robert admitted, "but ready. I'm tired of being the fool who doesn't know his wife is cheating on him." "You're not a fool," I said. "You're a good man who trusted the wrong person." "So are you," he said. "A good woman, I mean." "We'll be okay," I said. "After this is over, we'll both be okay." "I hope so." "I know so," I said. "Because we're taking control of our lives. We're not letting them make fools of us anymore." Friday came and I spent the day preparing. I got my hair done again, bought another new dress, and spent an hour on my makeup. I wanted to look perfect. I wanted Thomas to see exactly what he was losing. At 7 o'clock, I met Robert at Romano's. He looked handsome in his navy suit, and I could see the determination in his eyes. "Are you ready for this?" he asked. "I've been ready for weeks," I said. We were seated at table 11, right next to the table where Thomas and Patricia would be sitting in 30 minutes. The restaurant was busy, filled with couples and families enjoying their Friday night dinners. "What if they don't show up?" Robert asked. "They'll show up," I said. "It's their routine. They never miss their Friday night dinners." "What if they see us first?" "Then we'll improvise," I said. "But they won't see us. They're too absorbed in each other to notice anyone else." We ordered drinks and appetizers, trying to look like a normal couple on a date. But my hands were shaking and I could see that Robert was nervous too. "After tonight everything changes," he said. "Good," I said. "I'm tired of the way things are." "What do you want to happen? After all this is over?" "I want to be happy," I said. "I want to wake up in the morning and not wonder if my husband is lying to me. I want to go to bed at night and not worry about who he's thinking about. I want to feel like I'm worth something." "You are worth something," Robert said. "You're worth everything." "So are you," I said. "Patricia is an idiot for throwing away a good man like you. Thomas is an idiot for throwing away a good woman like you." We smiled at each other and for a moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: hope. Maybe there was life after Thomas. Maybe there was happiness after betrayal. Maybe there was love after heartbreak. At 7:30 exactly, Thomas and Patricia walked into the restaurant. They looked perfect together, him in his charcoal gray suit, her in a red dress that made her look like a movie star. They were laughing about something, completely comfortable with each other. The hostess led them to table 12, just 3 feet away from us. Thomas pulled out Patricia's chair, kissed her cheek and sat down across from her. They immediately started talking, their heads bent close together. "They look like they're in love," Robert whispered. "They probably are," I whispered back. "But love built on lies doesn't last." We watched them order wine, hold hands across the table and share stories about their day. We watched them feed each other appetizers and laugh at each other's jokes. We watched them live out the perfect romantic relationship that should have been mine. "I can't believe I'm sitting here watching my wife have dinner with another man," Robert said. "I can't believe I'm sitting here watching my husband be the man I fell in love with 30 years ago just with someone else." "Are you ready?" Robert asked. I looked at Thomas and Patricia, lost in their own little world. In a few minutes their world would be shattered. In a few minutes they would learn that actions have consequences. In a few minutes they would face the truth about what they'd done. "I'm ready," I said. The hour that followed was the longest of my life. Robert and I sat at our table, forcing ourselves to eat while watching Thomas and Patricia enjoy their romantic dinner. Every laugh, every touch, every intimate whisper felt like a knife twisting in my chest. "She's wearing the necklace I gave her for Christmas," Robert said quietly, his voice tight with pain. "He's using the same jokes he used to use on me," I replied, watching Thomas make Patricia laugh with a story I'd heard 100 times. They ordered the same meal they'd had the week before: Caesar salads, filet mignon, and chocolate mousse to share. It was clearly their routine, their special thing. Just like Thomas and I had once had special things. "I need to use the restroom," I said, standing up. "Are you okay?" "I need a minute," I said. In the restroom, I splashed cold water on my face and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked good, better than I had in years. My hair was perfect, my makeup was flawless, and my new black dress showed off the figure I'd been working hard to get back. I looked like a woman who deserved better than a cheating husband. I looked like a woman who was ready to fight. When I returned to the table, Robert was staring at his phone. "James sent more photos," he said, showing me the screen. "From today." The photos showed Thomas and Patricia leaving Patricia's office building together at lunchtime. They were holding hands, looking at each other like teenagers in love. In one photo, Thomas was kissing Patricia's forehead while she smiled up at him. "They had lunch together today," Robert said. "While I was at home making Patricia's favorite dinner because I thought she'd had a hard day at work. While I was at home doing Thomas's laundry because I thought he'd been working so hard all week," I added. We were both quiet for a moment, processing the full extent of our spouse's betrayal. It wasn't just the affair, it was all the lies, all the fake concern, all the performance of being loving spouses while they were actually in love with other people. "They're getting ready to leave," Robert said. I looked over at table 12. Thomas was signaling for the check and Patricia was touching up her lipstick. They looked satisfied, happy, like they'd had a perfect evening together. "Not yet," I said. "Let them finish. Let them have their perfect moment. Because it's about to be their last one." Thomas paid the check and they sat talking for a few more minutes. Patricia was laughing at something he said, her hand on his arm. Thomas was looking at her like she was the most beautiful woman in the world. He never looked at me that way. Not even when we were dating. Not even on our wedding day. Now? Robert asked. Now, I said. We stood up from our table and walked the 3 steps to table 12. Thomas was in the middle of saying something to Patricia when I appeared beside him. Hello, Thomas, I said. The look on his face was something I would remember for the rest of my life. Complete shock, followed by terror, followed by the desperate look of someone trying to figure out how to explain the unexplainable. Linda, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. What are you doing here? Having dinner, I said calmly. With my friend Robert. Patricia looked confused, glancing between me and Thomas. She hadn't figured out who I was yet. Robert? Thomas asked, looking at the man standing beside me. Yes, Robert said, his voice steady despite the anger I could see in his eyes. Patricia's husband. The color drained from Patricia's face so quickly I thought she might faint. She looked at Robert, then at me, then back at Thomas, finally understanding what was happening. I think we need to talk, I said, pulling out the chair next to Thomas and sitting down without being invited. Linda, I can explain, Thomas started. I'm sure you can, I said. You're very good at explaining things. You explained why you were working late every night. You explained why you were taking so many business trips. You explained why you needed to buy new clothes and cologne. You're excellent at explaining. Robert sat down next to Patricia, who looked like she was about to be sick. Hi, honey, he said to his wife. How was your continuing education class tonight? Robert, Patricia started. Because I called the community college, Robert continued. They don't have any evening classes this semester. Isn't that interesting? The silence at our table was deafening. Around us, other diners were starting to notice that something was wrong. The couple at the next table was openly staring. The waiter was hovering nearby, clearly unsure whether to approach. How long have you known? Thomas asked finally. Long enough, I said. Long enough to get a private investigator. Long enough to get photos. Long enough to get proof. I pulled out my phone and showed them one of James's photos, the 2 of them kissing in the parking lot of the Marriott Hotel. Nice picture, I said. Very romantic. Patricia made a small sound like a wounded animal. Robert, please let me explain. Explain what? Robert asked. Explain how you've been lying to me for months? Explain how you've been having sex with another woman's husband? Explain how you've been playing the loving wife while you were actually planning to leave me. We never planned to leave you, Thomas said quickly. This isn't about that. This is just what? I interrupted. Just fun? Just sex? Just something to do when you're bored with your real life. It's not like that, Patricia said, speaking for the first time. We love each other. The words hit me like a physical blow. Well, not just an affair, not just a mistake, but love. My husband was in love with someone else. You love each other, I repeated. How nice. How long have you been in love with each other? They looked at each other, and I saw the answer in their eyes before they said anything. 6 months, Thomas said quietly. 6 months, I repeated. And how long have you been having an affair? 8 months, Patricia whispered. So you were having sex for 2 months before you fell in love, I said. That's very romantic. Very touching. Linda, please, Thomas said. Don't do this here. Don't do what here? I asked, raising my voice slightly. Don't tell the truth here? Don't show people who you really are here. People are staring, Patricia said, looking around the restaurant nervously. Good, Robert said. Let them stare. Let them see what kind of people you are. I pulled out the folder of evidence I'd brought with me. Photos, receipts, phone records, hotel bills. I spread them out on the table between us. This is what 8 months of lies looks like, I said. This is what 8 months of betrayal looks like. This is what 8 months of destroying 2 marriages looks like. Thomas stared at the evidence, his face getting paler by the minute. Patricia was crying now, quiet tears that she was trying to hide. What do you want? Thomas asked. I want you to tell me the truth, I said. All of it. No more lies, no more excuses, no more explanations. Just the truth. What truth? The truth about how long you've been cheating on me. The truth about whether you ever loved me. The truth about whether this marriage meant anything to you at all. Thomas looked at Patricia, then back at me. I could see him trying to figure out what to say, how to minimize the damage, how to make himself look less guilty. Don't look at her, I said. Look at me. I'm your wife. I'm the person you've been lying to for months. I'm the person who deserves the truth. I did love you, Thomas said finally. I do love you. But I'm also in love with Patricia. You can't love two people at once, I said. Yes you can, he said. I never meant for this to happen. I never meant to hurt you. But you did mean to lie to me, I said. You did mean to cheat on me. You did mean to make me feel like I was crazy for suspecting that something was wrong. I'm sorry, he said, and I could see that he meant it. I'm so sorry, Linda. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me, I said. You destroyed me. You made me question everything about myself, about our marriage, about whether I was worth loving. You are worth loving, Thomas said. This isn't about you. This is about me. This is about my problems, my weaknesses. Don't, I said. Don't try to make me feel better about being cheated on. Don't try to make this about your problems when the problem is that you're a liar and a cheater. Around us, the restaurant had gone quiet. Everyone was watching our table, drawn by the drama unfolding in front of them. I could see phones being pulled out, people taking pictures and videos. This is going to be online in an hour, Robert said to Patricia. Everyone we know is going to see this. That's what we want, I said. We want everyone to see what kind of people you are. We want everyone to know that you're not the perfect couple you pretend to be. What do you want from us? Patricia asked, her voice broken. I want you to face consequences, I said. I want you to lose the things you care about the way you made us lose the things we cared about. What consequences? You'll find out, I said, standing up from the table. But first, I have something to say. I looked around the restaurant at all the people who were staring at us, and I spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. My name is Linda Morrison, I said. This is my husband, Thomas Morrison. And this is Patricia Reynolds, the woman he's been having an affair with for 8 months. The restaurant was completely silent now. Everyone was staring at us, phones out, recording everything. I want everyone to know what kind of man my husband is, I continued. He's the kind of man who lies to his wife every day. He's the kind of man who cheats on the woman who stood by him for 23 years. He's the kind of man who destroys his marriage for sex with his coworker. Linda, stop, Thomas said, standing up. And I want everyone to know what kind of woman Patricia Reynolds is, I continued. She's the kind of woman who seduces married men. She's the kind of woman who lies to her husband while she's having an affair. She's the kind of woman who destroys other people's marriages for her own pleasure. Please stop, Patricia begged. No, I said. I won't stop. I'm tired of being quiet. I'm tired of being the good wife who doesn't make a scene. I'm tired of protecting people who don't deserve protection. I looked directly at Thomas. I'm divorcing you, I said. I'm taking half of everything we built together. I'm telling our children what kind of father they have. I'm telling everyone we know what kind of man you are. Then I looked at Patricia. And I'm sending copies of all these photos to your employer. I'm sure they'll be very interested to know that you're having an affair with a married man during business hours. You can't do that, Patricia said. Watch me, I said. I picked up my purse and looked at Robert. Are you ready to go? More than ready, he said, standing up. We walked out of Romano's together, leaving Thomas and Patricia sitting at their table, surrounded by staring diners and the ruins of their secret relationship. As we reached the parking lot, I started laughing. Not because anything was funny, but because I felt free for the first time in months. How do you feel? Robert asked. Like I can finally breathe, I said. Me too, he said. What now? Now we watch their world fall apart, I said. And we start building new ones. The parking lot of Romano's was cold and dark, but I felt warmer than I had in months. Through the restaurant's large windows, I could see Thomas and Patricia still sitting at their table, surrounded by curious diners. Thomas was gesturing frantically, probably trying to explain something to Patricia. Patricia was crying openly now, her perfect makeup running down her cheeks. Do you think they'll try to follow us? Robert asked. I don't care if they do, I said. Let them try. Let them see what it feels like to be the ones chasing after someone who doesn't want to be caught. We stood by our cars for a moment, both of us processing what had just happened. 6 months of planning, weeks of preparation, and it was over in 15 minutes. I can't believe we actually did that, Robert said. I can't believe it took us so long, I replied. My phone started buzzing. Text messages, one after another. Then calls. Thomas was trying to reach me, probably desperate to control the damage, to spin the story, to make excuses. I turned off my phone. He's calling, I said to Robert. So is she, Robert said, looking at his own phone. I'm turning mine off too. Good. Let them panic. Let them wonder what we're going to do next. What are we going to do next? I thought about that question. What did I want to do next? I'd been so focused on the confrontation that I hadn't thought much about what came after. I'm going home, I said. I'm going to pack the rest of my things and move to my new apartment. I'm going to file for divorce first thing Monday morning. I'm going to start my new life. Can I help? Robert asked. With what? With moving? With starting over? With not being alone? I looked at Robert, really looked at him. He was a good man. A kind man. A man who'd been betrayed the same way I had, who'd been through the same hell I'd been through. A man who understood what it felt like to have your world destroyed by someone you trusted. I'd like that, I said. Good, he said. Because I don't want to be alone either. We drove to my house in separate cars, Robert following me through the quiet suburban streets. The house I'd shared with Thomas for 15 years looked different now, smaller, sadder, like a place that had been abandoned rather than lived in. This is it, I said as we pulled into the driveway. Nice house, Robert said. It was, I said, when it was a home. Now it's just a place where I lived with a stranger. Inside, the house felt empty even though all of Thomas's things were still there. His coffee cup was still in the sink from this morning. His jacket was still hanging by the door. His life was still scattered throughout every room, but he wasn't really here anymore. He hadn't been here for months. Where do you want to start? Robert asked. My bedroom, I said. I want to get my clothes and my personal things. I don't want to have to come back here after tonight. We went upstairs to the master bedroom I'd shared with Thomas for so many years. The bed where he'd lied to me every night. The closet where he'd hidden the evidence of his affair. The bathroom where he'd washed off her perfume before coming home to me. This is harder than I thought it would be, I said, looking around the room. Why? Because this used to be our room. We were happy here once. We made love here, we talked about our dreams here, we planned our future here. But that was before, Robert said gently. Before you knew who he really was. I keep wondering if he was lying then too, I said. Was he thinking about other women when he was with me? Was he planning his affairs even when we were happy? It doesn't matter, Robert said. What matters is what you do now. He was right. I couldn't change the past, couldn't undo the betrayal, couldn't make Thomas into the man I'd thought he was. But I could control what happened next. I started packing, pulling clothes from the closet and dresser drawers. Robert helped, carefully folding things and placing them in boxes. It was strange having another man in my bedroom, but it didn't feel wrong. It felt like having an ally. Can I ask you something? I said as we worked. Of course. Do you think we're doing the right thing? Humiliating them like that. Robert stopped folding and looked at me. Do you think they thought about humiliating us when they were having their affair? Do you think they cared about how we'd feel when we found out? No, I said. Then yes, we're doing the right thing. They made their choices. Now they get to live with the consequences. We finished packing my clothes and moved on to my jewelry, my books, my photographs. All the pieces of my life that had nothing to do with Thomas. All the things that were mine alone. What about the wedding photos? Robert asked, pointing to our wedding album on the dresser. I picked it up and flipped through a few pages. Thomas and me cutting the cake. Thomas and me dancing. Thomas and me promising to love each other forever. I don't want them, I said. They're pictures of a lie. Are you sure? I'm sure. I put the album back on the dresser. Maybe someday I'll want to remember the good times, but not today. Today I just want to move forward. My phone, which I'd turned back on, started buzzing again. More calls from Thomas, more text messages. I glanced at the screen and saw a string of increasingly desperate messages. Linda, please call me. We need to talk. I can explain everything. I'm coming home. Please be there. I love you. This doesn't change that. Please don't do anything else. We can work this out. I showed the messages to Robert. He's scared, Robert said. Good, I said. He should be scared. His whole life is about to fall apart. Do you think he'll come here? Probably. But we'll be gone by then. We loaded my boxes into Robert's truck in my car. 3 hours of packing and I'd managed to fit my entire life into a dozen boxes. It was depressing how little I actually owned that mattered to me. Is that everything? Robert asked. Everything that's mine, I said. Everything else belongs to the life I used to have. We drove to my new apartment across town. It was small but bright, with big windows and fresh paint. It looked like a place where someone could start over. It's perfect, Robert said as we carried the boxes inside. It will be, I said. Once I make it mine. We spent the next hour unpacking my clothes and setting up my bedroom. It felt good to hang my dresses in a closet that was completely mine, to put my books on shelves that no one else would touch. I should go, Robert said when we finished. It's late and you probably want to be alone. Actually, I said, I don't want to be alone. Would you like some coffee? Or wine? Wine sounds good, Robert said. I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. This seemed like a special occasion the first night of my new life. To new beginnings, Robert said, raising his glass. To new beginnings, I agreed. We sat on my new couch in my new living room, drinking wine and talking about everything except our cheating spouses. We talked about our jobs, our hobbies, our dreams. We talked about the people we'd been before we got married, the people we'd lost along the way. I used to paint, I said. Before I got married, I painted all the time. I was pretty good at it. What happened? Life happened. Thomas happened. I got so busy being a wife that I forgot to be myself. I used to travel, Robert said. I wanted to see the world. But Patricia always had excuses for why we couldn't go anywhere. Too expensive, too dangerous, too much trouble. Maybe we can travel now, I said. Maybe we can do all the things we used to want to do. Maybe we can, Robert said. My phone buzzed again. Another call from Thomas. I declined it without looking. He's persistent, Robert said. He's panicking, I said. He knows I'm serious about the divorce. He knows his comfortable life is over. Do you think he'll fight it? He might try. But I have evidence. I have photos. I have proof of adultery. He doesn't have much to fight with. What about Patricia? Do you think she'll try to save her marriage? I don't know, I said. But it doesn't matter. Robert, you deserve better than someone who cheats on you. You deserve someone who chooses you, not someone who lies to you. So do you? Robert said. We looked at each other for a long moment. There was something happening between us, something neither of us was ready to name. We were both too hurt, too broken, too raw from betrayal to think about love. But there was something. Understanding, maybe. Or just the comfort of not being alone. I should go, Robert said again. I know, I said. But I'm glad you were here tonight. I'm glad I didn't have to do this alone. Me too, Robert said. He left around midnight, and I sat alone in my new apartment, drinking wine and thinking about everything that had happened. 6 hours ago, I'd been a married woman living a lie. Now I was a single woman starting over. It should have been terrifying. It should have been overwhelming. But instead it felt like freedom. My phone rang one more time. Thomas again. This time I answered. Hello, Thomas, I said. Linda, thank God. Where are you? I came home and all your things are gone. I moved out, I said. What? We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. No, we can't, I said. There's nothing to fix. Our marriage is over. It doesn't have to be. I made a mistake, but I love you. I want to be with you. No, you don't, I said. You want to have your cake and eat it too. You want me to be the safe choice while you have your fun with Patricia. It's not like that. Yes, it is, I said. And I'm done being the safe choice. I'm done being the woman you settle for. Linda, please. I'm filing for divorce on Monday, I said. I'm taking half of everything. I'm telling our children what you did. I'm moving on with my life. What about us? What about 23 years of marriage? You should have thought about that before you started cheating on me, I said. I'm sorry, Thomas said, and I could hear him crying. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen, I said. And now we both have to live with the consequences. Can we at least talk? In person? No, I said. There's nothing left to say. I love you, Thomas said desperately. No, you don't, I said. If you loved me, you wouldn't have cheated on me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have lied to me for months. If you loved me, you would have ended our marriage before you started a new relationship. I do love you. I love you both. You can't love two people at once, I said. You can want two people, you can have sex with two people, you can lie to two people. But you can't love two people. Love requires honesty, and you haven't been honest with either of us. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. What do you want me to do? I want you to leave me alone, I said. I want you to sign the divorce papers when they come. I want you to stay away from me while I rebuild my life. And Patricia? That's between you and her, I said. But I wouldn't count on her sticking around now that your affair is public. She wanted the excitement of a secret relationship. She might not want the reality of a messy divorce. What if she does? What if we want to be together? Then I hope you'll be very happy, I said, and I meant it. I hope you'll be as happy as you made me miserable. Linda. Goodbye, Thomas, I said and hung up. I turned off my phone and poured myself another glass of wine. Outside my new windows, the city looked different than it had from my old house. Brighter. More full of possibilities. Tomorrow I would call a lawyer. I would change my beneficiaries, my emergency contacts, my everything. I would start the process of untangling 23 years of shared life. But tonight I would celebrate. I would celebrate my freedom, my courage, my new beginning. I would celebrate the fact that I'd finally stood up for myself. I would celebrate the fact that I was finally free. Monday morning came with a mixture of rain and sunshine, which seemed appropriate for the first day of my new life. I woke up in my new apartment, in my new bed, with no idea what Thomas was doing or where he was sleeping. For the first time in 23 years, his life was none of my business. It felt strange and wonderful. I was making coffee when my phone started ringing. Not Thomas this time, my sister Carol. Linda, what in the hell happened this weekend? She said without preamble. Good morning to you too, I said. Don't good morning me. Janet Miller called me last night. She said she saw a video on Facebook of you confronting Thomas at some restaurant. She said you accused him of having an affair in front of everyone. Janet Miller needs to mind her own business, I said. Is it true? Is Thomas having an affair? I poured my coffee and sat down at my new kitchen table. Yes, it's true. He's been cheating on me for 8 months. Oh, honey, Carol said, her voice softening. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed to handle it myself, I said. I needed to be strong enough to do what I did Saturday night. What you did was certainly dramatic. What I did was necessary, I said. Thomas has been lying to me for months. His girlfriend has been lying to her husband for months. They needed to face consequences. But in public like that? Linda, everyone's talking about it. Good, I said. Let them talk. Let everyone know what kind of man Thomas really is. Carol was quiet for a moment. Are you okay? I'm better than okay, I said. I'm free. Where are you living? Thomas called me looking for you. I moved out, I said. I have my own place now. Do you need anything? Money, a place to stay, someone to talk to? I need you to be happy for me, I said. I need you to understand that this is the best thing that could have happened. Getting cheated on is the best thing that could have happened? Finding out I'm strong enough to fight back is the best thing that could have happened, I said. After I got off the phone with Carol, I called my divorce lawyer. Her name was Amanda Price, and she specialized in cases involving adultery. I'd chosen her specifically because she had a reputation for being ruthless. Mrs. Morrison, Amanda said when I arrived at her office. I saw the video. Video? From Saturday night. It's all over social media. You've become quite famous. She showed me her phone. There was a shaky video someone had taken at Romano's, showing me confronting Thomas and Patricia. The video had been shared hundreds of times, with comments ranging from supportive to shocked to judgmental. Good for her, one comment read. She handled that like a boss. This is so embarrassing, read another. She should have handled this privately. Team Linda, read a third. Her husband is trash. I'm going viral, I said. You are indeed, Amanda said. And that's actually going to help us in the divorce proceedings. How? Because now Thomas can't claim this was just a misunderstanding or a one-time mistake. The whole world knows he was having an affair. He'll have no choice but to negotiate fairly. What about Patricia? What about her? Can we do anything to her? Legally, I mean. Unfortunately, adultery isn't a crime anymore. But her employer might be interested to know she's been conducting personal business on company time. I smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Amanda and I spent the next hour going over my case. The evidence I'd gathered was more than sufficient to prove adultery. The photos, receipts, and phone records painted a clear picture of a sustained affair. Thomas would have no choice but to agree to a favorable settlement. What are your goals? Amanda asked. I want half of everything, I said. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts, everything. I want enough money to start over comfortably. That's reasonable, Amanda said. What about alimony? I don't want it, I said. I don't want to be tied to him financially. I want a clean break. Are you sure? You're entitled to it. I'm sure, I said. I want to be completely independent. I want to build my own life with my own money. What about the house? I want him to buy out my half, I said. I don't want to live there anymore. Too many bad memories. We can make that happen, Amanda said. Given the evidence we have, I don't think Thomas will fight us on anything. After the lawyer's office, I drove to my old neighborhood to pick up my mail. I'd forgotten to change my address with the post office, and I needed to make sure I wasn't missing anything important. Thomas's car was in the driveway. I parked on the street and walked to the mailbox trying to look casual. I could see him watching me from the living room window, but he didn't come outside. He looked terrible, unshaven, still in his clothes from Saturday night, like he hadn't slept. Good. I was sorting through the mail when Patricia's car pulled up behind mine. She got out slowly like she was afraid I might attack her. Her face was puffy from crying and she looked as bad as Thomas did. "Linda," she said quietly, "can we talk?" "No," I said, not looking up from the mail. "Please. I need to explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said. "You had an affair with my husband. That's all I need to know. It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "How was it supposed to happen?" I asked, finally looking at her. "Were you planning to tell me yourself? Were you going to ask my permission?" "We were going to end it," Patricia said. "We knew it was wrong." "When?" I asked. "When were you going to end it? After another month? Another year? After you'd destroyed both of our marriages completely?" Patricia didn't answer. "Did you think about me at all?" I asked. "When you were in bed with my husband, did you think about the woman he was going home to? Did you think about the wife he was lying to?" "Yes," Patricia said quietly. "I thought about you all the time. And I told myself that if you were a better wife, he wouldn't have needed me." The words hit me like a slap. "A better wife?" "I'm sorry," Patricia said quickly. "I didn't mean." "No, you meant it," I said. "You told yourself that Thomas cheated because I wasn't good enough. You made me the villain in your love story." That's exactly what you did," I said. "You told yourself that I deserved to be cheated on. You told yourself that you were saving Thomas from his unhappy marriage." Patricia was crying again. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Save your apologies," I said. "Save them for your husband. Save them for your children. Save them for your employer when they find out what you've been doing." "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm sending copies of all the photos to your HR department," I said. "I'm sure they'll be very interested to know that you've been having an affair during business hours." Patricia's face went white. "You can't do that. You'll ruin my career." "You should have thought about that before you ruined my marriage," I said. "Please," Patricia said. "I have children. I need my job." "I had a marriage," I said. "I needed my husband to be faithful. But that didn't stop you." I walked back to my car, leaving Patricia standing in the street crying. As I drove away, I saw Thomas come out of the house to comfort her. Even now, even after everything that had happened, he was still choosing her over me. It hurt, but not as much as I'd expected. Mostly, it just confirmed that I was making the right choice. That evening, I was unpacking books in my new apartment when my phone rang. "Robert, how was your first day of freedom?" he asked. "Complicated," I said. "How was yours?" "Patricia didn't come home last night," Robert said. "She's been staying at her sister's house." "Are you okay?" "I'm better than okay," Robert said. "I cleaned out her closet and donated all her clothes to charity." I laughed. "That's terrible." "Is it?" "She left me to comfort her boyfriend. I figured she didn't need her things anymore." "What about your kids?" "They're old enough to understand," Robert said. "I told them their mother had an affair and that we're getting divorced. They were upset but not surprised." "Not surprised?" "Apparently they'd suspected something was wrong for months. Kids are more perceptive than we give them credit for." "What about Thomas's reaction to the public confrontation?" "According to my lawyer, he's willing to negotiate," Robert said. "Apparently he doesn't want this to drag out any longer than necessary." "Smart man," I said. "The longer it takes, the more time people have to talk about what he did." "Have you seen the video?" "Unfortunately, yes," I said. "I'm internet famous now." "You looked amazing," Robert said. "Strong, confident, beautiful. Like a woman who knows her worth." "Thank you," I said. "That's exactly how I felt." "Can I take you to dinner?" Robert asked suddenly. "What?" "Dinner. Tomorrow night. Somewhere nice. Somewhere that isn't Romano's." I thought about it. Was I ready to have dinner with another man? Was I ready to even think about dating? "I don't know if I'm ready for that," I said honestly. "It doesn't have to be a date," Robert said. "It can just be two friends celebrating their freedom." "Two friends," I repeated. "Two friends who've been through hell and came out the other side." "Okay," I said. but I'm paying for my own meal. Deal? Robert said. After we hung up, I sat in my new living room thinking about everything that had changed in just 3 days. 3 days ago, I'd been a married woman living a lie. Now I was a single woman with her own apartment, her own lawyer, and her own future to plan. It was terrifying and exhilarating and lonely and freeing all at the same time. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. I saw the video. Good for you. You deserved better. A friend. Then another, your husband is a pig. You're better off without him. And another, Team Linda. You're my hero. Apparently, the internet had decided I was the wronged woman they were all rooting for. It was strange to have strangers supporting me, but it was also oddly comforting. I was not alone in this. I was not the first woman to be cheated on, and I wouldn't be the last. But I was one of the few who had fought back, who had refused to be humiliated in private, who had demanded that her cheating husband face public consequences for his actions. I was proud of myself. For the first time in months, I was genuinely proud of who I was and what I'd done. I opened a bottle of wine and toasted my empty apartment. To new beginnings, I said out loud. To freedom. To finally knowing my own worth. Outside my window, the city lights twinkled like stars. Somewhere out there, Thomas was probably trying to figure out how to rebuild his life after destroying it. Somewhere out there, Patricia was probably crying about losing her job and her reputation. But I wasn't thinking about them anymore. I was thinking about tomorrow, about next week, about next year. I was thinking about all the possibilities that lay ahead of me now that I was free to choose my own path. For the first time in 23 years, my life belonged entirely to me. And I couldn't wait to see what I would do with it. 3 weeks after the confrontation at Romano's, my life had settled into a routine that felt both foreign and wonderful. I woke up when I wanted to, ate what I wanted for breakfast, and went to work without having to worry about what Thomas was doing or who he was seeing. The divorce proceedings were moving faster than I'd expected. Thomas had signed the papers without fighting, probably because he knew he had no leverage. The video from Romano's had been shared thousands of times, and everyone in our social circle knew exactly what kind of man he was. He's agreed to all your terms, Amanda told me during our weekly meeting. He'll buy out your half of the house, split the savings accounts 50-50, and divide the retirement funds. He's also agreed to pay all your legal fees. That was easier than I thought, I said. He wants this over with as much as you do, Amanda said. His reputation is destroyed. His friends won't talk to him. His brother called me to say he's ashamed of Thomas. What about his job? He's still employed, but apparently there's been talk. Having an affair with a coworker reflects poorly on his judgment. And Patricia? She was fired yesterday, Amanda said. Conduct unbecoming of an employee. She violated company policy by having a relationship with a married man during business hours. I felt a twinge of satisfaction. Not because I enjoyed other people's suffering, but because there were finally consequences for their actions. How's your new life? Amanda asked. Better than I expected, I said honestly. I'm painting again. I joined a gym. I'm reading books I actually want to read instead of books Thomas thought I should read. Any regrets? None, I said. Well, one. What's that? I regret not doing this sooner. I regret wasting so many months being miserable when I could have been building something new. That afternoon, I met Robert for lunch at a cafe downtown. We'd been having lunch or dinner together twice a week since the confrontation, and I looked forward to our time together more than I wanted to admit. You look happy, Robert said when he saw me. I am happy, I said. Happier than I've been in years. Me too, Robert said. I got the final divorce papers yesterday. It's official, I'm a free man. How do you feel? Relieved, Robert said. And excited. I'm thinking about taking that trip to Europe I always wanted to take. That sounds wonderful. Come with me, Robert said suddenly. What? Come to Europe with me. We could see Paris, Rome, London. All the places we never got to go because our spouses didn't want to travel. I stared at him. Robert, Not as a romantic thing, Robert said quickly. Just as friends. Two people who've been through hell and want to celebrate their freedom. I don't know, I said. Think about it, Robert said. What's stopping you? You don't have a husband to ask permission from. You don't have anyone to answer to but yourself. He was right. For the first time in my adult life, I was completely free to make my own choices. I could go to Europe or Alaska or anywhere else I wanted to go. I'll think about it, I said. Good, Robert said. because I already looked at flights. That evening, I was in my apartment painting when my phone rang. My daughter Sarah calling from college. "Mom, I saw the video," she said without preamble. "Hello to you too, sweetheart," I said. "Mom, I'm serious. Everyone on campus has seen it." My roommate showed it to me and said, "Isn't this your mom? Are you embarrassed?" I asked, "Are you kidding?" Sarah said, "I'm proud of you. I'm telling everyone that's my badass mom who called out her cheating husband in front of a whole restaurant." Language, Sarah. "Mom, you're divorced now. You can't tell me to watch my language anymore." I laughed. "I'm not divorced yet. Another month or two." "But you're free," Sarah said. "And I'm so glad. Dad was always so controlling. He always acted like he knew better than you about everything." "When did you notice that?" "Years ago," Sarah said. "I used to wonder why you let him talk to you like that. You're smart, Mom. You're talented. You shouldn't have been taking orders from him." I thought I was being a good wife. "You were being a doormat," Sarah said. "But not anymore. Now you're being yourself again." "What do you mean?" "You sound different. Stronger. More like the mom I remember from when I was little before Dad started trying to change you." After we hung up, I thought about what Sarah had said. Had Thomas been trying to change me? Looking back, I could see it now, the subtle criticisms, the suggestions that I try a different hairstyle or wear different clothes, the way he'd discourage my hobbies and interests. He'd been slowly erasing me, turning me into his idea of what a wife should be. No wonder he'd been attracted to Patricia. She was probably everything he'd been trying to make me become. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I was becoming myself again, rediscovering the person I'd been before I'd gotten lost in being Thomas's wife. The next day, I made a decision that surprised even me. I called my boss and asked for a leave of absence. "How long?" she asked. "A month," I said. "Maybe 2. I want to travel." "This is sudden. Is everything okay?" "Everything's perfect," I said. "For the first time in years, everything's perfect." That afternoon, I called Robert. "I want to go to Europe," I said. "Really? Really? When do we leave?" "How about next Friday?" "That's perfect," I said. "Linda?" "Yes." "Thank you." "For what?" "For being brave enough to confront them that night. For showing me that we didn't have to be victims. For being my friend when I needed one." "Thank you for being there with me," I said. "I couldn't have done it alone." "Yes, you could have," Robert said. "But I'm glad you didn't have to." The next week flew by in a blur of preparations. I bought new clothes, got a passport rush order, and arranged for someone to check on my apartment while I was gone. I felt like a teenager getting ready for her first solo trip. On my last night in town, I drove past my old house. Thomas's car was in the driveway along with Patricia's. They were living together now, playing house in the home I'd helped build. I felt nothing. No sadness, no anger, no regret. Just curiosity about how long it would last. Relationships built on lies and betrayal rarely survived in the light of day. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I hope you're happy now. You ruined everything. Patricia." I deleted the message without responding. Her problems weren't my problem anymore. Another message, this one from Thomas. "I miss you. I made a mistake. Can we talk?" I deleted that one too. Whatever Thomas was feeling now, it wasn't my responsibility to fix. The next morning, Robert picked me up for our drive to the airport. I took one last look at my apartment, my refuge, my sanctuary, my symbol of independence, and grabbed my suitcase. "Ready?" Robert asked. "More than ready," I said. At the airport, as we waited for our flight to Paris, I thought about how much my life had changed in just 6 weeks. 6 weeks ago, I'd been a miserable woman living a lie. Now I was a free woman about to embark on the adventure of a lifetime. "Any regrets?" Robert asked, echoing my lawyer's question from the week before. "Just one," I said. "What's that?" "I regret not doing this 20 years ago." "Better late than never," Robert said. "Much better," I agreed. As our plane took off, I looked down at the city below and smiled. Somewhere down there, Thomas and Patricia were dealing with the consequences of their actions. Somewhere down there, people were still talking about the woman who'd confronted her cheating husband in a crowded restaurant. But I wasn't thinking about any of that. I was thinking about Paris, about the Louvre, about cafes and wine and all the things I'd never had the courage to do when I was married. I was thinking about the future, not the past. And for the first time in 23 years, the future looked absolutely perfect. 1 year later, I was standing in my art studio, the spare bedroom of my apartment that I'd converted into a space for painting, putting the finishing touches on a canvas that would be part of my first solo exhibition. The painting showed a woman walking away from a burning house, her face turned toward the sunrise. It was called Liberation, and it was the story of my year. The gallery opening was tomorrow night, and I was nervous in the best possible way. Nervous the way you get when you're about to do something that matters, something that represents who you've become rather than who you used to be. My phone rang. Robert, calling from his new apartment across town. "How are the paintings coming?" he asked. "They're ready," I said. "All 12 of them. A year's worth of work. I can't wait to see them all together. I can't believe people are actually going to buy my art," I said. "I can," Robert said. "You're incredibly talented. You always were, you just forgot for a while." Robert had become my closest friend over the past year. We traveled to Europe together, spent holidays together, supported each other through the final stages of our divorces and the awkward process of rebuilding our social lives. There had been moments when I'd wondered if we might become something more than friends, but we'd both agreed that we needed to learn how to be single before we could think about being with someone else. "Are you bringing anyone tomorrow night?" I asked. "Just myself," Robert said. "You?" "My sister, my daughter, and a few friends from the art class I've been taking." "What about Thomas? Has he tried to contact you?" "Not in 6 months," I said. "Last I heard, he and Patricia broke up. Apparently, she blamed him for her losing her job." "Shocking," Robert said sarcastically. "Who could have predicted that a relationship built on lies and betrayal wouldn't last?" I laughed. "I know, right? It's almost like actions have consequences." After we hung up, I walked around my studio, looking at the paintings I'd created over the past year. Each one told a part of my story: the discovery of the affair, the confrontation, the divorce, the rebuilding. They were raw and honest in a way I'd never allowed myself to be when I was married. Thomas had always preferred my prettier paintings, landscapes and flowers, and safe, decorative pieces that matched the living room furniture. These new paintings were different. They were bold, emotional, unapologetic. They were me. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment I felt a flash of the old anxiety, the fear that Thomas might show up wanting to talk, wanting to explain, wanting something from me that I wasn't willing to give. But when I opened the door, it was Sarah, my daughter, holding a bottle of champagne and grinning. "Mom," she said, throwing her arms around me. "I came early to see the paintings before tomorrow night." "You drove all the way from college just for that?" "Are you kidding? My mom is having her first art show. This is huge." Sarah had grown up a lot in the past year. The divorce had been hard on her at first, but she'd come to understand that her parents were better apart than they'd been together. She'd also become fiercely protective of me, which was both touching and unnecessary. "Come see," I said, leading her into the studio. Sarah walked slowly around the room, studying each painting carefully. When she got to Liberation, she stopped and stared for a long time. "This is you, isn't it?" she said. "Walking away from Dad." "It's me walking away from the life I used to have," I said. "Toward the life I was meant to have." "I'm so proud of you, Mom," Sarah said, tears in her eyes. "You're not the same person who used to tiptoe around Dad, trying not to upset him." "No, I'm not," I agreed. "That woman is gone." "Good," Sarah said fiercely. "She deserved better than what she got." We opened the champagne and sat in my living room, talking about the exhibition, about Sarah's classes, about our plans for the summer. It felt natural and easy in a way conversations with Sarah had never felt when I was married. Thomas had always dominated family discussions, always steered the conversation toward topics that interested him. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said. "Of course. Do you ever miss him?" I thought about that question. Did I miss Thomas? Did I miss being married? Did I miss the life we'd built together? "I miss the idea of him," I said finally. "I miss the man I thought he was. But I don't miss the man he actually was." "What do you mean?" "I miss the husband I thought I had, faithful, honest, committed to our marriage. But that man never existed. He was just a character Thomas played when it was convenient." "Do you think he misses you?" "Probably," I said. "But not because he loves me. Because he misses having someone to take care of him, someone to lie to, someone to come home to when his affairs got complicated." "That's sad," Sarah said. "It is sad," I agreed. "But it's not my problem anymore." The next evening, I stood in the art gallery wearing a black dress I'd bought specifically for the occasion, watching people examine my paintings. It was surreal to see strangers studying work that came from such a personal place, but it was also thrilling. "The artist is here," the gallery owner announced, and suddenly I was surrounded by people wanting to talk about my work, asking about my process, telling me how the paintings made them feel. This one speaks to me, said a woman standing in front of a painting called Betrayal. I've been there. I know exactly what this feels like. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be sorry, she said. Be proud. You turned your pain into something beautiful. Robert appeared at my elbow, looking handsome in a dark suit. How does it feel to be a famous artist? Terrifying and wonderful, I said. Good terrifying or bad terrifying? The best kind of terrifying, I said. The kind that means you're doing something that matters. As the evening went on, I sold 8 of my 12 paintings. People were buying my pain, my anger, my journey, my liberation. They were taking pieces of my story home with them. There's someone here to see you, the gallery owner said, appearing beside me with a nervous expression. I turned around and froze. Thomas was standing near the entrance, looking older and tired, holding a small bouquet of flowers. What is he doing here? Robert asked, moving protectively closer to me. I don't know, I said. But it's okay. I can handle this. I walked over to Thomas, my heart surprisingly calm. A year ago, seeing him would have sent me into a panic. Now, he just looked like a stranger who happened to resemble someone I used to know. Hello, Thomas, I said. Linda, he said, his voice uncertain. You look amazing. Thank you, I said. What are you doing here? I saw the announcement in the paper. About your exhibition. I wanted to see your work. And? It's incredible, he said, looking around the gallery. You're incredibly talented. You always were. But you never supported my art when we were married, I said. I know, he said. I was threatened by it. By your talent. By your independence. And now I realize what an idiot I was, Thomas said. About everything. Yes, you were, I agreed. But that's not my problem anymore. Linda, Thomas started. No, I said firmly. Whatever you came here to say, I don't want to hear it. This is my night. This is about my art, my success, my new life. You don't get to be part of it. I made a mistake, Thomas said desperately. The biggest mistake of my life. Patricia and I broke up months ago. It was never real what we had. It was just what? I asked. Just sex? Just excitement? Just a way to avoid dealing with the problems in our marriage? All of that, Thomas said. But I love you. I've always loved you. No, you didn't, I said. If you'd loved me, you wouldn't have cheated on me. If you'd loved me, you wouldn't have lied to me for months. If you'd loved me, you would have talked to me about whatever problems you thought we had instead of running to another woman. Can we start over? Thomas asked. Can we try again? I really looked at him. He was still handsome, still charming when he wanted to be. A year ago, I might have been tempted. A year ago, I might have been willing to try again, to forgive, to pretend that betrayal could be undone. But I wasn't that woman anymore. No, I said. We can't start over. I don't want to start over. I like the life I have now. Without me. Especially without you, I said. I'm happier now than I ever was when we were married. I'm stronger, more confident, more myself. Why would I give that up? Thomas looked stricken. Because we had 23 years together. Because we loved each other once. We had 23 years together, I agreed. And you threw them away for an affair with your coworker. You don't get to use our history as a reason to ignore what you did. I'm sorry, Thomas said, tears in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Linda. I would do anything to take it back. But you can't take it back, I said. You can't undo the betrayal. You can't make me trust you again. You can't make me forget what kind of man you really are. So that's it? It's really over? It was over the moment you decided to cheat on me, I said. I just didn't know it yet. Thomas nodded slowly, accepting defeat. I hope you'll be happy. I already am, I said. He handed me the flowers, daisies, my favorite, which he'd remembered after all this time, and walked out of the gallery. I watched him go, feeling nothing but relief that the conversation was over. Are you okay? Robert asked, appearing at my side again. I'm perfect, I said, and I meant it. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations, sales, and plans for future exhibitions. By the time the gallery closed, I was exhausted but exhilarated. I can't believe this is my life now, I said to Robert as we walked to our cars. What do you mean? A year ago, I was a miserable woman trapped in a loveless marriage. Tonight, I'm an artist with her own exhibition, her own apartment, her own future. You earned all of this, Robert said. You fought for it. We both did, I said. We both refused to be victims. What's next? Robert asked. I don't know, I said. And that's the beautiful part. For the first time in my adult life, I get to decide what comes next. Any ideas? A few, I said. I might travel more. I might take more art classes. I might write a book about my experience. What about personal things? Relationships. I looked at Robert, my friend, my ally, my partner in liberation. There was something there between us, something that had been growing slowly over the past year. Something that might become love, given time and the right circumstances. Maybe, I said. Someday. When I'm ready to trust someone again. When you're ready, Robert said, I hope you'll consider trusting me. I already do trust you, I said. You've earned it. Robert smiled. Good. Because I plan to keep earning it. As I drove home to my apartment, I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago. Broken, betrayed, desperate for revenge. I'd gotten my revenge. Thomas and Patricia had both faced consequences for their actions. But more importantly, I'd gotten my life back. I'd gotten myself back. The woman who had confronted her cheating husband in a crowded restaurant was gone, replaced by someone stronger, braver, more authentic. Someone who painted her truth instead of hiding it. Someone who chose happiness over security, independence over comfort. Someone who finally knew her own worth. At home, I hung the painting of the woman walking away from the burning house in my living room, where I could see it every day. A reminder of how far I'd come, how much I'd survived, how much I'd grown. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Saw the article about your art show in the paper. Congratulations. You deserve all the success in the world. A friend. I smiled and put the phone away. Somewhere out there, people were still rooting for me. People who had seen the video, who had followed my story, who understood that sometimes you have to burn down your old life to build a new one. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my couch, looking around my apartment. My space. My sanctuary. My launching pad for whatever came next. For the first time in my life, I was exactly where I was supposed to be, doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing, being exactly who I was supposed to be. And it felt absolutely perfect.